good evening, or morning, or, let's be honest, probably that weird, disorienting time in the afternoon when you're wondering if a fourth coffee is a cry for help. Tonight we're diving into something a bit heavier than your average cat video compilation, though arguably just as pervasive in modern life: substance abuse in the workplace. Now, before you click away thinking, oh great, another lecture, let me assure you, this isn't about wagging fingers. It's about understanding a genuine crisis that, like a particularly stubborn stain on your favorite shirt, affects an astonishing number of people across an array of professions. From the people saving our lives to the ones serving our lattes, the pressure cooker of modern work can, and often does, lead some down a very difficult path. And why should we care which professions are most affected? Well, apart from basic human empathy, which I know can feel like an endangered species these days, understanding the who and why is crucial. It's like trying to fix a leaky tap. You wouldn't just randomly start hammering at the pipes in your neighbor's garden, would you? Unless your neighbor, in which case, we need to talk. Pinpointing the high-risk professions allows us to target support, to change systemic issues, and to, perhaps, make work a little less of a reason to seek solace in something that ultimately offers none. It's about looking at the data, acknowledging the problem, and maybe, just maybe, doing something about it. So, tonight, we're not just going to list some jobs, we're going to peel back the veneer, look at the unique stressors, the cultural quirks, and the environmental factors that make certain careers a veritable minefield for substance abuse. Because if we're going to talk about the future of work, we damn well better make sure it's a future where people aren't being silently crushed by it. Think of this as a public service announcement, but with slightly more exasperation and hopefully a few less stock photos of people sadly staring out of rainy windows, though no promises on that last one. Alright, first up on our rather grim hit parade healthcare professionals. Yes, the very people we entrust with our lives, our limbs, and our slightly embarrassing rashes. Doctors, nurses, paramedics, these are individuals who routinely face life and death situations, often before they've even had their morning coffee. The stress levels in this field aren't just high, they're stratospheric. Imagine having to make critical decisions that could permanently alter someone's existence, all while battling chronic understaffing, labyrinthine bureaucracy, and the emotional toll of constant exposure to trauma and suffering. It's a recipe for burnout so potent, it makes a burnt microwave pizza look like a Michelin-starred meal. And the hours. Oh, the hours. We're talking shifts that would make a vampire say, you know what? I think I'll just stay in tonight. This relentless pressure, combined with the sheer exhaustion of 12-hour, 16-hour, sometimes even 24-hour shifts, creates a perfect storm. When you're running on fumes day in and day out, the temptation to find a quick fix, a momentary escape or something, to keep you going or to help you switch off can become incredibly powerful. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a human response to an inhuman workload. And let's not forget the access. While it's a grim irony, some healthcare professionals have easier access to prescription medications, which can, for a vulnerable few, blur the lines between legitimate use and a dangerous coping mechanism. This isn't to point fingers, but to highlight a systemic vulnerability. The culture within medicine can also be, shall we say, less than conducive to admitting you need help. There's often an expectation of stoicism, of invincibility. Physician, heal thyself is a lovely sentiment, but it's a terrible mental health strategy. When the entire system seems designed to push people to their absolute limits and then offer very little in the way of a safety net, is it really surprising that some turn to substances to cope? It's like expecting someone to run a marathon every single day and then being shocked when their legs eventually give out. We need to do better by these people, because when our healers are hurting, we all pay the price. And that's a diagnosis no one wants to hear. Next on our list, we venture into the chaotic, often underappreciated world of food service. Yes, the chefs, the servers, the bartenders, the people who fuel our nights out, our lazy brunches, and our desperate, I can't possibly cook tonight takeaways. This industry is notorious for its high-octane environment, unpredictable hours, and, let's be frank, often less than stellar pay and benefits. Imagine juggling 6 flaming torches while reciting Shakespeare backwards, all while a customer complains that their ice is too cold. That's basically a Tuesday night for many in food service. The pressure to be constantly on, to smile through a barrage of demands, and to perform flawlessly under intense scrutiny is immense. And then there's the accessibility factor. When your workplace is literally a bar or a restaurant with a well-stocked cellar, the lines between work and unwinding can get blurrier than a cheap photograph. The shift drink culture, while sometimes a harmless perk, can easily become a slippery slope for those already struggling or predisposed to substance issues. It's right there. Easy. A quick way to decompress after a brutal service where you've been yelled at by a chef, a manager, and 3 separate customers who all wanted their steak cooked medium rare, but more on the medium side, but definitely not medium well. You know? Yes, we know. We know it's a nightmare. Furthermore, the industry often attracts a younger workforce, some of whom might be navigating early adulthood with its own set of pressures, and it can foster a work hard, play hard mentality that sometimes normalizes or even encourages heavy substance use as a bonding experience or a stress reliever. This isn't to say everyone in food service is struggling, not by a long shot, but the environment, the late nights, the cash-in-hand tips that can fuel impulsive decisions, the physical toll of being on your feet for hours, and the constant high-stress customer interactions. It all combines to create a significantly higher risk. It's an industry that gives so much, often for so little in return, and that imbalance can take a heavy toll on the people within it. All right, let's hard hat up and move on to number 3, construction workers. These are the folks who literally build the world around us, our homes, our offices, our bridges. It's physically demanding, often dangerous work, performed in all kinds of weather, from scorching heat to bone-chilling cold. Think about the sheer physical exertion required day in, day out. Lifting, carrying, operating heavy machinery. It's a job that takes a significant toll on the body. And with physical wear and tear often comes chronic pain. And what's a common, albeit deeply problematic way some people manage chronic pain, especially if they don't have great access to healthcare or are worried about taking time off? You guessed it. But it's not just the physical strain. Construction work can also be incredibly isolating. You might be on a remote site for weeks or months at a time, away from family and social support networks. This isolation, coupled with the pressure to meet tight deadlines and budgets, can create a breeding ground for stress, anxiety, and depression. And when you're feeling isolated and overwhelmed, the allure of a substance that promises temporary relief or a sense of camaraderie, even if it's a false one, can be strong. The tough guy culture prevalent in some parts of the industry also doesn't exactly encourage open conversations about mental health or struggles with addiction. Then there's the cyclical nature of the work feast or famine. Periods of intense, high-pressure work can be followed by layoffs or uncertainty about the next job. This financial instability adds another layer of stress. When you're worried about where your next paycheck is coming from, it's easy to see how someone might turn to alcohol or drugs to cope with the anxiety. It's a tough job, done by tough people, but that toughness shouldn't mean they have to suffer in silence. We need to build better support structures for the people who build everything else for us, because a foundation of well-being is just as important as a foundation of concrete. Our fourth profession under the microscope is one that argues for a living legal professionals. Lawyers, attorneys, paralegals, people who navigate complex laws, advocate for clients in high-stakes situations, and often deal with the darker, more contentious aspects of human nature. The pressure to win, the long hours spent poring over case files, the adversarial nature of the courtroom. It's an environment that practically screams stress. Imagine having someone's freedom, their livelihood, or their entire future resting on your ability to dissect a comma in a centuries-old statute. It's enough to make anyone want a very, very stiff drink, or several. The demanding nature of this profession often means work bleeds into every corner of life. Billable hours are a relentless taskmaster, and the expectation to be constantly available, constantly sharp, and constantly on can be utterly exhausting. This isn't just a job, it's a lifestyle, and often a lifestyle that leaves little room for personal well-being or healthy coping mechanisms. The emotional toll is also significant. Lawyers frequently deal with trauma, conflict, and human suffering. Whether it's criminal law, family law, or even high-stakes corporate litigation, They are often absorbing the stress and pain of their clients, and that vicarious trauma is a heavy burden to carry. And much like our friends in healthcare, there can be a culture of perfectionism and an unwillingness to show vulnerability. Admitting you're struggling might be perceived as a weakness, as not being tough enough for the job. This can lead to lawyers suffering in silence, self-medicating with alcohol or other substances to manage the crushing stress, anxiety, or depression that can stem from the relentless demands of their chosen field. The irony, of course, is that a profession dedicated to justice often fails to provide a just and supportive environment for its own practitioners. It's a case that desperately needs a new precedent, one that prioritizes mental health and well-being. And finally, for our fifth and final act, we turn the spotlight onto the entertainment industry. Actors, musicians, writers, crew members, the people who create the magic that entertains us, inspires us, and occasionally makes us question our life choices after a particularly bad reality TV binge. While it might look glamorous from the outside, with red carpets and flashing lights, the reality for many working in entertainment is a chaotic whirlwind of irregular hours, intense public scrutiny, and profound job insecurity. One minute, you're the talk of the town. The next, you're wondering if you'll ever work again. That kind of instability is a breeding ground for anxiety. The pressure to perform, to be constantly creative, to maintain a certain image can be immense. For performers, rejection is a constant companion, and the highs of success can be as dizzying as the lows of failure are crushing. This emotional roller coaster, combined with the often unstructured nature of the work-long, unpredictable shoots, extensive touring schedules that disrupt normal life, and periods of intense work followed by unemployment, can make it incredibly difficult to maintain any semblance of balance. And in an industry where networking often happens in environments where alcohol and other substances are readily available, the temptation to use them as a social lubricant or a coping mechanism is ever present. Moreover, there's a certain romanticization of the tortured artist trope, which can inadvertently normalize or even glamorize substance use as part of the creative process or a consequence of fame. This is, of course, a dangerous myth. The high-pressure environment also extends to those behind the scenes, the crew working punishing hours to meet deadlines, the writers facing constant creative blocks and revisions. It's an industry built on dreams, but for some, those dreams can curdle into a nightmare if the underlying pressures aren't managed. The show must go on, as they say, but it shouldn't have to go on at the expense of the well-being of the people putting it on stage or screen. So, there you have it. 5 professions, each with its own unique cocktail of stressors that can, unfortunately, lead to a higher risk of substance abuse. And let's be clear, this isn't an exhaustive list, nor is it an indictment of these professions themselves. It's a spotlight on the systemic pressures, the cultural norms, and the often inadequate support systems that leave people vulnerable. The common thread here isn't individual failing. It's that work, in its current, often relentless form, can be a brutal taskmaster. And we, as a society, haven't quite figured out how to ensure that earning a living doesn't come at the cost of, well, living. What's urgently needed is a multi-pronged approach. We need better mental health resources tailored to the specific challenges of these high-stress jobs. We need workplace cultures that actively encourage help-seeking rather than stigmatizing it. Imagine that. A workplace where saying "I'm struggling" is met not with judgment, but with genuine support. Revolutionary, I know. Employers have a massive role to play here, from implementing preventative programs to ensuring that workloads are manageable and that employees feel valued and supported, not just like cogs in a machine designed to churn out profit or services at any human cost. Ultimately, breaking the stigma around substance abuse